Welcome to the Socket podcast. Today, I am bringing back a previous guest and one of my dearest friends, Nicki Anderson. Nicki, thank you so much for coming on. How are you doing today?
You know what? I am reflecting the weather outside. I am sunny and warm,
Seriously, the last
right?
3 or 4 days have been so miserably dreary here
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
Chicagoland area that
yeah,
today I woke up, I saw the sun, and it breathes new life into you.
right. Yeah, it's an attitude adjuster for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
I don't know how to
fantastic.
get that when it's, 40 degrees, raining or it was like sleeting, hailing or something earlier.
I don't know
Like,
what it
what
was
the heck is
doing.
this?
It was just annoying me, Kath. It was
Yeah.
just annoying me. Let's just.
Well, and I can get through one day of that, but once it
Mhm,
strings
sure.
together a couple of days, I'm like, oh, come on, son. We're
Mhm,
rooting for you. So
yeah,
today is that
ditto,
day.
ditto.
So, Nikki, can you tell us just a teeny bit about your background and where you're at in motherhood, where you're at in work, things like that?
Sure. Um, my name is Nicki Anderson. I was born in San Diego, California.
I didn't know that.
You did it? Oh,
No.
see, you learn something
Okay.
new every day. Um, and I am probably an entrepreneur. Like I will always be an entrepreneur, right? That is
Yep.
that is really my passion. I love creating things. So I had my own business for about 20 years in the health and wellness world. I've been a columnist, a writer, an author, and I've also been a CEO of the Naperville Area Chamber of Commerce for about 5.5 years. And presently, I am the director of the LEADS program, Leadership Empowerment Action. Development and Service at Benedictine University, which is a 4-year undergraduate leadership program for women. And I got to develop it from nothing.
That's
So
awesome.
it's really and I had this last year, which we've all been kind of inside, so it's been a really wonderful year to do that. I have 4 amazing grown children. I am married, celebrating 36 years in just 2 weeks.
Wow.
And I have 2 of the most incredible grandchildren that are the light of my life. That's
Mm.
my story. I'm sticking to it.
Well, it sounds like a very good story. And I have been privileged enough to be a part of it for at least the last 15 or so years. And if you know Nikki, you know she's an amazing gardener along with her husband, Bill, and she cooks the most incredible food. So I get so jealous. I'm like, I want to eat Nikki's food again. So
Soon, soon,
sometime soon.
very soon, very
But
soon.
uh, but anyway, the reason why I asked Nikki to come back on the show, she taped another podcast probably last year. I mean, last year, maybe May or something. We taped, um, is that I had this experience where for International Women's Day, Caitlin Coffey, who works for me and helps with putting Socket social media together, was like, "Hey, can you just jump on, do a quick video, a little shout out for International Women's Day?" And I was like, yeah, of course. Now, I just gotten home from the gym and I hadn't colored my roots in probably, I don't know, 2 months, right? I just kind of let it go. And so my hair is pulled back in a ponytail and I go outside. It's kind of as the sun is setting. And I tape this quick 30-second video and I watch the video. I'm like, oh my God, my hair looks so gray. And it actually looks 5 times more gray than it actually looks in person. Just the way the light was hitting, the fact that I'd kind of gotten sweaty from working out. And I almost didn't post it. I almost was like, you know what? I don't know that I want to post this. I look so gray in this. And I was like, you know what? Socket is about plugging into you, being confident in who you are, and whatever. What's the worst thing going to happen? People think that I'm gray, right? So what was interesting was the reactions I got. I had a few of my best girlfriends call me or text me and say, I need to tell you, your gray looks amazing. Like you are going to rock that. My best friend was like, I think you should just go gray now. I think you should just do it. Like, I think that looks really good on you. I'm like, well, I'm not quite ready. But I had one guy who's like really into nature and he's kind of like the boy version of me from what I see him posting. He reached out authentically and said, I love your gray hair. That looks beautiful on you. But I had one person reach out to me by text, someone that I've been friends with for 20 years. And he said, I don't even know what to say about the hair. period. And in that moment, I instantaneously reverted back 15 years into insecure Kathy Subber, and I defended myself. I sent him a screenshot of a video I had taped that week to prove to him that I still had blonde hair and that I guess I'm still attractive. And as soon as I did it, I was like, "Oh my God, what did I just do? I haven't talked to this guy in a year. Why am I defending myself? Why am I defending myself? What do I care if he thinks I went gray? Well, it doesn't matter at all to me." But it did. In that moment, I had that knee-jerk reaction to try to defend myself. And again, kind of prove I'm still, I don't know, young, youthful, whatever goes along with coloring your hair and not being gray within our societal rules, right? That have been kind of placed on us. So anyway, that's a long story, but Nicki, I know, had a time in her life. You said you were 53 when you
Mhm,
first tried to go
mhm.
gray,
Yep.
and now she is actually in the process. I think pandemic probably maybe spurred that on a little bit, of actually changing over and becoming her beautiful gray haired self. So I just wanted to talk to you about your experiences of when you tried to do it at first, and maybe how that's different and how you feel
Mm.
differently about trying to do it, 5 years later.
Love it. So I never want you to second guess your response because it was an authentic response. But that person, I would have said, "Excuse me, I don't think I was asking for your opinion."
Seriously.
Like I don't, I am more appalled that he thought that it was his job to, like, I could go on for an hour about that, but let's get to what we're here for. Um, so next time before you respond, just, "Hey, Nikki,
Right,
can you
right.
help me with this response?" Because aren't we like 10 hours later, we go, "Oh, the perfect response would have been," right? But anyway, yeah, it was your authentic response, and that was good. So yeah, I was about 53, and it was interesting because I had just sold, I think I had just sold my business. So I had, like, a couple of years. I was trying to figure out what I want to do. And I thought, you know what? I think I'm going to try this going gray thing, right? I get my hair colored every 4 weeks. I'm in a chair for 2.5 hours, and it just kind of sucks. And I had a couple people that were, "Yeah, do it, do it." And at the time, I was really active on my blog, so I was writing about it. And some people were very supportive, and there were other people who, just thought it was a travesty. Which I looking back, I go, what's that about? But I got in about 3.5 months into it, and I I wasn't ready. I felt mentally older,
Mm,
right? So fast forward, right? Pandemic hits. Um, but here's what's interesting about this. Prior to the pandemic, I had had the privilege, and I say this in so many ways, I mean that privilege in so many ways, of going on a trip with a girlfriend to Mexico, to like this gorgeous, gorgeous spot. And a lot of the women there were gray.
mm.
And I was looking at them and going, "They're gorgeous." Like I was feeling honestly embarrassed. Like, there's no way, because 50% of people by the age of 50 are gray. Not
Yeah.
completely, but are gray. Some form of gray. And I just kept looking at these women, and they were confident and stunning. Like, really, it was all different, right? Like, these are highlights, right? These are highlights, right? It was beautiful. So I got back, and it was right before I had a color appointment, and it was very windy outside, and I knew that my roots were showing, and I was walking ahead of a couple guys, and the wind came, and I grabbed my hair because I knew that the break in my hair would show my gray. That was my moment,
Mm.
because I said, "Am I more ashamed of the fact that I'm covering up what is naturally mine, or am I ashamed of being gray.
Yeah.
And I just had to spend some time with that conversation with myself. And it really wasn't about anything other than that conversation, which led me to I'm on this journey right now at this point of my life to being as authentic as I possibly can, to be a role model for my family. For me, I'm just saying for me, my hair was part of that,
Hmm.
right? I have grandchildren. I had to ask myself why. If it's because I feel attractive when I do it, man. But if it's because I feel like I have to in order to be accepted, to get a job, to have people like me, to fit into this culture that we've created, that wasn't authentic. So that was really part of my decision that I was being inconsistent with my journey.
And isn't that the point of life where you're like, I've got a lot of this figured out? If you can say to yourself, if I'm only coloring my hair to fit in some mold that society has kind of placed on most women, because when men go gray, they're sexy, right? They're salt and pepper. I mean, I look
Don't
at
get
Jason
me started.
and
Yeah.
I'm like, ooh, you've got some more gray in there, right?
Right.
Now I'm very fortunate to be in a partnership with someone where he's like, Cathy, at any moment you want to go, I actually think it looks really good on you. So you do you. Like if you want to do like now if I cut my hair into like a short bob,
So that's the other thing too, right? It's like just a woman said to me, "Oh, Nick, you're not going to do that, are you?" That was and someone I love and respect, but that was her response. And it's like it's not like I'm going to have some homely haircut and start wearing a bathrobe around town, right? Like and there's this idea that we're giving up.
Mhm.
I am living up. I am not giving up. I am living up to my expectations, not anyone else's expectations. That is powerful. And whether it's your hair or whatever, when I think about those two people, men that were behind me going, God, they'll see me. It's like, if I don't feel like I'm attractive to myself, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. And I have to tell you, I feel very attractive with my hair. I feel a little, edgy, a little like
Yeah.
rebellious, right? Because and I'm going to go back quickly to your point about the men, because I always say that men are sexy. And I think the thing that really stands out to me is, have you ever seen a woman go up to a guy and go, "Oh, are you really letting your hair go gray?" Right? Here's the thing. You get wrinkles, right? We all get wrinkles, but you go gray. So it's like this, if you're going there, that's a choice. You can't help the wrinkles, but the gray you can cover up. And then again, we go back to that question, why? Who
Yeah.
is it for? If it's for ourselves, and every time I sit in that chair and I feel beautiful when I get my hair colored, do it, man. If you feel beautiful, but if you're doing it to meet an expectation that has nothing to do with you, then that's something to have a conversation about.
I think that's a great point because for me right now, I'm 47 and I know that when I get to the point where I want to do that for me and stop, I don't sit in a chair for 2.5 hours because I use Nice and Easy 9A that is $7 at probably at Oswald's Pharmacy. And every 6 weeks it takes me about an hour to do it.
Yeah.
And so the time constraint is a lot less. That being said, I feel great when it's done. I love right now at this phase of my life. I love having blonde hair. I used to have blonde hair as a child. It kind of slowly changed into I call it a shit brown. It's like this weird, crappy brown color. But now it's nicer brown with a lot of gray in
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so I know when I get to that point, I will embrace it. I'm just not quite there yet, and
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
and so and but I don't do the blonde hair for other people. I do it because I really like it. I think it looks good on me right now.
And
Um,
Kath, you've always been kind of this old soul that has been a little bit further ahead, right? Because you've heard me say this 100 times, and that is when you're in your 20s, the world's your oyster. You don't know it. When you're 30s, you're spending too much time trying to please other people because you're trying to figure out your way. When you're 40s, you have the confidence, not necessarily the wisdom. In your 50s, you've got, God willing, you have confidence and wisdom. And by the time you're getting to where I am, 60s, the world's your oyster and you effing know it, man, right? And that is, I think, there are women in their 70s that still color their hair, and that is absolutely okay. If you feel beautiful, right? And Kathy, you talk about this all the time. Do you? And this is, I didn't realize how me it was. And the beauty is, I mean, you can see me, but I always had this straight pitch black hair. And now I have this kind of curly, the salt and pepper kind of fun thing going on, right? And so, what we were talking about earlier is I have a fun haircut, right? I've always wanted to get my nose pierced. I'm thinking about that. I mean, like, it's just these, not the clip, but the little, I love that. And that's just me, right? And I am so less, I'm become less and less interested in how you see me unless it has to do with my heart, right?
mm, oh, that needs to be one of your quotes, Nikki Anderson.
Okay.
You need to write that. That needs to be written freaking down right now. That's amazing, right? That's because the kindness goes into that. But your heart is
Yeah.
the embodiment of kindness, of respect, of
Yeah.
the core of who you are as a human being. And
Yeah.
so, yeah. And now some people will judge you on your heart in the wrong way, right? It has to come from an authentic place in
Oh,
them. But
right, right.
that's beautiful. God, I love that. And
And
it's so go ahead.
no, I just think it that is kind of, this journey that we're on. And you and I were talking prior to this show about the silver lining of this time, right? And I can think of many. But one of them has been just the ability to slow down, right? To really, like, mindfulness, and it's so overused, but it is so important. And I think I just put up a quote because Nicki and her quotes, and that the more that we are consciously connected, the less we will be unconsciously disconnected, right? So being consciously being, I want to be here with you, Kathy. I see you. I want to be here, right, with you, which is different than, okay, we're doing this, and now I'm thinking about what I got to do next. Oh my God, I think I just got zinged on my phone, which actually, I would never do, but but my drift. We're always thinking about what's next versus what's now.
Mm. I love that too, because I think intentional living, right? That rolls into the concept of what do you say yes to and what do you say no to,
Yeah,
right? If you don't want to be somewhere, it's going to suck more energy out of you than even the energy required to show up for it.
right,
Um,
right.
and so as I've gotten older, and I know we've had this conversation, we probably talked about it on the last podcast we did, but that we both have gotten to a place where, you know, if people tap you on the shoulder to do something and it just doesn't fit, you're too booked out or just isn't in alignment with where you're at right now, it's okay to politely say, I'm so sorry, that doesn't work for me,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or not even that I'm so sorry that unfortunately doesn't fit into my calendar.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm honored you asked me. However, I can't. I
Yeah.
can't, right? And that, to me, it just goes along with all of that. The confidence to trust yourself, your decisions. It's interesting as we interview these young ladies for this leadership program, many of them say, I want to improve my confidence. And one of the things that I've said to my senior advisory group and even to some of my students is that, what's interesting about that word confidence is that you can't have confidence without trust.
Mm.
You have to trust yourself. You have to trust that even if you make a mistake, you're going to come back. You're going to be okay. And it's figuring out that first, trusting yourself, the decisions that you make. And then I think the confidence stems from there. I think we sometimes kind of get it backwards. You can't have confidence in yourself if you don't have trust in yourself. And so my confidence comes from trusting the decisions, which has taken a long time. And one of them is I'm going to go gray. Or no, I am going to let my hair do what it does.
Right. I'm going to stop going black, right? I'm going to stop coloring my hair to
Yeah,
make it
yeah,
a color that isn't naturally me right now, because that's
yeah,
the phase I'm at in my life and that's what I want to do. And
exactly.
to go back to
Exactly.
the confidence and the trust, I would add to that, that as I have grown in my confidence, a lot of that came from looking inward and learning to truly love myself.
Hmm.
That so much of a break in confidence is a break in connection to you, right? I mean, Socket is about plugging into you. It's about making sure that at our core, we love who we are despite our flaws, despite our setbacks, despite our failures, despite the things that externally to the world might be judgeable or even to us might be judgeable. So taking that
Sure.
out and really finding it within ourselves to love and trust ourselves. And
Right.
you're right. Sometimes there are those building blocks to get to the confidence. I don't know that every young woman knows how to plug into those building blocks. They want to get the confidence, but it's hard to do if you don't set that solid foundation.
Right. Oh, without question, we've heard so much talk this past year about, loving one another, right? That's what it's all about. We have to love one another. But Kath, to your point, the challenge is you can't, it's impossible to do if you don't feel that way about yourself, right?
Yep.
It has nothing to do with being selfish, right? It has everything to do with being selfless. And that whole thing that we talk about all the time, and you've talked about on your television show and with Socket and with your Naperville Moms group, and that is, you have to be selfish, right? You have to be, and you have to take care of yourself if you want to take care of other people. And that's just the way, if I am caring for myself in the way that heals me and restores me, I am then able to go out and share that. If I am not doing that, if I am closed off, if I am anxiety ridden and stressed to the max because I'm so disconnected with myself, how does that show up when I'm trying to embrace others?
It's so true. It's so true. So tell me about, what have the reactions been to you going gray? Do you get a lot of them?
Well, the funny thing is I've been home. So I think more of the reaction will happen probably over the next few months. It's been interesting because I go on these Zoom calls, right? And you can kind of see people like looking at me like, wait, is that just a reflection or is her hair really gray? So I've had a couple when I go on a call, I go, oh my gosh, I love your hair. That is so, and some people don't say anything, and that's perfectly okay.
Yeah.
Again, it kind of goes back to I walk by the mirror and I'm like, hey, right? I love it. And that's again, without being redundant, you have to love it. And if you love your hair and whatever you do to it, if you love your new glasses and they empower you, if you love that new dress that it's whatever makes you feel good, as long as it truly is, you own it, that you own it. And that's, I really think, what makes it that authentic self-care, self-admiration, right? We got to admire ourselves sometimes, and that's really hard for us to do because we're too busy admiring everybody else. But yeah, so I haven't gotten a lot of, and plus my hair's pretty salt and pepperish. And what I've learned is that truly our hair color, like what, if you'll notice, and this was probably your case, Kat, I belong to this Facebook group. I'm not on Facebook, but once a month I go in and I'll check in. And there's women on there from 25 all the way up to 85. And it's just fascinating. When you see the blue-eyed, fair-skinned women, their hair tends to be very white. When you see women more my coloring, the darker color, it's salt and pepper. It's so interesting because it is very consistent when you see
Hmm.
that. I mean, think about, you have blonde hair too, right? And gray is just pigment. You're losing the pigment in your hair follicles, right? So however darker skinned people, however that transition happens, it's definitely different than when I see these. But the thing is, these women, when their hair goes gray and they have these stunning blue eyes, it is gorgeous, right? Where if I was white, we might be having a different conversation. I don't feel like that would be as attractive. I mean, hey, I'll whatever it is, because like I have patches that are white, and I kind of love them. I call my little skunk patches. So it's
Well, it's
interesting.
and I think your hair looks gorgeous. I love it. I love it.
Thank you.
I have a
Thank you.
patient of mine that I saw about 2 weeks ago. Um, and actually, maybe it was this past week because I think I talked to her about what happened with that guy reaching out to me, and she let her hair go during the pandemic, and it's probably down to about here right now. And she's like, once it gets down to about here, I'll cut it into a bob. And
Yeah.
I said, so how has your experience been with it? She's like, it's been awesome. Like, I've always kind of wanted to do this. And, I mean, I love it and I get some good feedback from it. She goes, here's one thing I didn't expect. She said, how many men stop me and tell me that it's stunning or it's beautiful?
I've heard
And
that.
she's like, I don't know if it's something like maybe it reminds them of their mom a little bit, but I'm still young. She's like, I don't know what's going on with that. I'm sure there's some sort of psychological,
Yeah.
dissertation that can be done on that. But she's like, I
I
just didn't expect that.
Yeah, well, I have heard, now this has not been my case because my Instagram is private, but I follow a couple Instagram and they say that men are often, what do you call it, private messaging them,
Oh,
telling them how hot they are and yeah, all of that. So, hey, hey, Silver Fox is in the house.
oh my God, that's so
I
funny.
know it is kind of funny, right? When you think about that, because we've always had this idea that when women go gray, it's unflattering, you're giving up, it's homely, it makes you look old. And honestly, when I look at pictures now, this is what has fascinated me most of all. When I look at pictures with my colored hair versus now, I think that my natural color, makes my features much softer,
Hmm.
which is interesting because 80% of women actually color their hair, which is really interesting
Wow.
compared to 7% in 1950. Isn't that interesting? But 80%, and there has been this jump in Washington with legislators, men and women. Men, it used to be like 7 to 9%, and now they've seen like this jump. It's like 12% of men. So when I was looking around, me, I've kind of turned a little bit of a geek with that kind of stuff, and I'm looking around at the house, and there's not a gray head to be found. And with women, there are definitely men, but it's so interesting. And again, not from a judging perspective, I just find it interesting. Next
Yeah.
time Congress is in session, look, you won't see a gray-haired woman in the bunch. You might now after this last year, but yeah, it's just really interesting. And the idea is, as as a legislator, they want to be relevant, right? And there's this idea that when you're gray, you're no longer relevant. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
I feel more relevant than I've ever been, right? So I just find it interesting. And I think too that needs to be the messages we talk about Women's History Month and just women empowerment, that do not judge me by what you see. You want to judge me by what I do and my actions, and knock yourself out, but do not, even over this last year, we've been so aware of when someone's on TV and you go, oh God, she's getting old. Do you say that about the men? No, we're hard on each other. We're very
Yeah.
hard on each other. And so I've just also been thinking about that, paying more compliments to women, not necessarily on how they look, but how smart they are. Oh my gosh, look at the great thing that they did. And or look at how their business is doing, that kind of stuff, empowering women and not making it about this, right? Oh
Yeah.
God, he's going gray. She's giving up.
I've tried to intentionally shift my kind of how I talk to little girls in my practice. I specialize in pediatrics, so I see a lot of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 year olds, all ages. But um, I think I used to be a little more like, "Oh, that dress is so pretty on you," and now I'll be like, "Wow, you are so strong. Look how you jumped up on that table all by yourself." Right? Or you are such a great big sister to your brother. I bet your mom really appreciates your help because you're a good helper, right? I'm trying to speak into who they are as a human being as opposed to what they look like. Now, I can't say if someone comes in a unicorn dress, I'm going
Yeah,
to tell them I love their unicorn dress and I hope they make it in my size. And they laugh, right? And I'm like, I think we even have a unicorn sticker out there after we're done. So,
you do have unicorn stickers.
I totally do.
Well,
So,
and it's interesting because I'm sorry, Kath.
no, no,
Go on.
no. It's okay. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's so interesting that you say that because if I say something to Tilly, my granddaughter, about, oh, I love your dress, I will say to Arlo that I love your shirt. Like
Mm,
I want to make sure that it's not complimenting her on how she looks and on him on something, his physical ability to throw a ball or something like that, which is very common with kids. But the I completely lost my train of thought. So go ahead. I love that you're aware of that because honestly, it's so important. I did a quote that said, instead of telling women at work how much you love their dress, tell them how much you love their leadership, right? Because that's so important. I that is something that I'm really proud of, right? Yeah, I can rock a dress, but being, leading a great meeting or making the right hire or landing that big project, like that, acknowledge me on that. And I think that perhaps that's been the delineation between men not being as obsessed, or culturally we're not as obsessed with the way men look, but we are with women is because we've kind of set that table, right?
yeah. It's just so true. You- Is it just me, or is there a collective rising of women in leadership, women talking about leadership? I mean, I know after this whole year and everything that's gone on in the whole world, um, and I don't know if it's just the circles I sit in, right? That I was talking to Jason, I have more unbelievably smart, dedicated, thoughtful, mindful um, women friends than I've ever had in my life. I am feeling so blessed to be in conversation and in just relationship with that. And I think our mindsets, some of the groups that we sit in, I think are so similar. We all have different edges. We all have different, spaces that we come from. But I love seeing this shift, and I feel it kind of viscerally. I feel as if I see it everywhere. Maybe I'm just looking for it more, or maybe I'm just putting myself in the position where I'm with people that have that same mindset. But if we all can do our part, I think you move forward next 10 years, and things are going to be dramatically different than they are right now. And they're already improving. We still got a long way to go in so many
Yeah.
ways, but
I mean, we still only have 4% of women that are CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, right? I
which is
mean,
crazy.
but we're having the conversation. I mean, it even goes back to, implicit bias. We're having these conversations now. I mean, we are having the conversations. And to me, this is the start, right?
Yeah.
And I think what makes me sad sometimes is really it's 2021 and we're still having the conversation. Like, what the heck? But you probably look at your boys, I look at my kids, and I think that they're really going to be change makers. I think that just the generation that they've grown up in, I think that they're really going to be the ones that make the change because we're seeing it. But also, we are who we surround ourselves with, right? And like attracts like. I've always said that. What you put out there is what you get back. So I think we do have this a lot of the same friends, and they're amazing, kind, brilliant women, and I'm so grateful for that. But I also have to say, we complement each other, and that's a really beautiful thing. And I don't mean compliment like, oh wow, you're amazing, but you know what I mean. We do that too, though. And I do think that the conversation. I mean, look at what I'm doing at Benedictine. I will tell you, there are hundreds of leadership programs and leadership centers in universities. Very few are doing a 4-year specific to create these or develop these competencies in these young women, so that when they leave that university, they can go out and they can negotiate a contract, or they can be in an uncomfortable conversation and know how to bring it full circle, right? And that's the kind of stuff that I think we're having more conversations about, and we're excited about it.
I think that's awesome. I think that's awesome. You know, it's so funny when I asked you to come on to talk about going gray, you know, hair going gray, I had a sneaky suspicion we get into a little deeper conversation as well.
We do that. We do.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it just lends itself to the idea that the gray hair, it's nothing really. What it is it's just my acknowledgement of this next phase, right? It's kind
Yeah.
of just part of my journey. But what it really comes down to is what we're doing together as women to support each other. And my gray hair has not a freaking thing to do with it.
Oh,
Oh
well,
God, she's gray. She can't do anything now. She's old.
right, exactly. Well, I just love that, and I love you. So,
Back at ya.
if someone's listening and they're
Yeah.
either going to be a college student, has a daughter that's going to be a college student,
Mm.
has a granddaughter that's going to be a college student, and they say, I need to find out more about this program and this college, where can they track you down?
Well, they can just go to Benedictine University in Lisle and just type in Leads,
Okay.
LEADS, and our leadership page will come up, or our homepage will come up, and tell you a lot about it. You know, we're always looking for mentors for our students. It won't happen until we have our first cohort of seniors, but you know, in a few years, we'll be looking for mentors, senior mentors for these students. They'll have them their senior year and post graduation, which think about how awesome that would have been to have somebody post graduation when you're going, okay, I got this job offer and I need more money. What do I do? Right.
Right.
So yeah, so thank you for that, Kath. We're really excited. We accept our first cohort this fall, and I think we'll have about 15 students for our first cohort, which I'm really excited about.
That's great. That's
Yeah,
great.
it is great.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, and
Gosh,
I
it's been a
hope you
blast.
have I hope you get outside and enjoy that sunshine we talked about in the beginning of the podcast, and I hope you have a great weekend.
Thank you so much. Back at you. I don't have to worry about the wind blowing my hair.
That's a crazy story. That's so funny. Anyway,
All
if
right.
any of you would like to get a hold of me, you can find me on my website, simplysocket.com, or my email, Cathy@simplysocket. Have a great day and chat with you soon.